the fearless, curious soul. Goldilocks Productions presents The Deep Reading, connecting you to your soul show.
This is Suzanne Wyman, the Deep Psychic. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. Please think about the commentary that you can relate to. I want you to feel included and know that if this conversation resonates to who and what you are, then you are part of something greater than yourself. The universe is connecting to you and answering your questions. So today's conversation is a little bit different. I want you to know, if you're listening right now, that you are welcome to join in simply by calling 206-806-9965 and include yourself in the conversation. So I don't always do it where it's just open and you're welcome to call in and it's just random. So if you would like to do that, just give me a call and we will bring you on. But today I'm having a conversation with my husband. Excuse me, let's bring him on and let's get...
Hello.
Hi, Rich, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. You're somebody who's the biggest fan of radio shows and talk radio of anybody I've ever known. You have a real ear for listening for it. So you are a perfect person to include in this process because you know exactly how to ask questions and how to make the tempo of the show sort of move along. So you and I designed the show, and it was really about asking questions about what it's like to live as a psychic, work as a psychic, and have the process of education and training that goes on in order to become really good as a psychic working in the world today, because today it is a different world.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So tell my audience what you do, please.
Well, I'm an artist. I make a living as an artist, and I do impressionist work. I was trained in Spain by my uncle, and I've sort of created the field of painting live events. I paint weddings and events as they happen, and at the end of the night, the party has a complete oil painting of their event, which will last for lifetimes. That's what the idea is, and I love it. It's really it's an amazing thing. Okay,
so right now there's not any weddings going on. So what are you doing now?
Taking whatever comes along. Whatever comes along. So right now I'm working on a piece. A couple got married about 12 years ago in Texas, and you were doing a party at Terranea in Palos Verdes for Littler Law, and that was a 6-hour event. And 6 hours. And yeah, and so I was on the coast there painting the San Vicente Lighthouse, which is beautiful. It's from like 1932, and I sat there and I painted with watercolors as you were doing the party. And this gentleman came by. He saw what I was doing, and he came by again. He was all lit up. He goes, "I want to get that for my wife. She works for Littler Law. She's at the party right now, and she just had a huge promotion, and I'd love to get this for her as sort of like a gift." I go, "Great, yeah." And so he went to the ATM and came back and paid for the painting, and then we've been in contact since then. And his wife, the picture's hanging in her office, and all the people from Littler Law, the office she works at, come by and see it, and they remember that day and that event. And so we've kept in touch, and so right now I'm doing from photos his wedding ceremony.
Wow.
And so that's keeping me busy.
That's good. Oh, it's really good. You know, it's funny when you talk about me doing a party. So littler law for, I think it was 5 or 6 years, maybe it was more. For 1 week, they would take and they would come to Terranea in Rancho Palos Verdes, California, and they would hold their conference, which was their classes, in order to get their credit. It was an award ceremony. It was dinners. I mean, it was just activity, 16 hours a day, 7 days in a row. And on one of those days, there'd be a day where they talked about what they needed to do to take better care of their health. You know, these attorneys, you know, I don't even know how they work 90 hours a week. I didn't know you could work 90 hours a week. But they work these long days, and they don't do much to take care of their health, so they set up this room, and they had to go and get certain things checked. How much sun exposure were they getting, which was, you know, not a common problem. Blood pressure.
Right.
But then there was all these really good foods, you know, raw foods, raw nuts, and you know, raw fruits and vegetables, and vegetarian hummus, and, you know, just some things to eat and keep their energy going. And then they could get a massage in a chair, and they could come and talk to the psychic. So, and this was just one piece of one event on one day, and it's just a really tiny event. I mean, in comparison to the whole event. So one year they decided that they were going to economize and they weren't going to bring me out, the people that, you know, booked me in. And the woman said she would never do that again because she spent the whole day answering the question. People came up to her and they said, okay, I did all the things I'm supposed to do. Now I'm ready to talk to the psychic lady. Where is she? And she had to spend the entire day telling them that she hadn't brought me. So after that, they said, no, never again. We won't do that again. So people came and sat down and had a conversation with me. And it would be each year that they would come and they would sit and have this conversation. And littler law is they're focused simply on labor, labor management. They are a management law firm. So it is 112 offices in 68 countries, and they are the largest law firm in the world today. So great group of attorneys, always very kind and very personable, and a lot of fun. These are the attorneys that are writing law and changing the world. But now...
Yeah, they were totally looking forward to you. I mean, people don't have the opportunity because they're so busy with their day-to-day stuff, and unless they just come across a psychic, they're not going to be out, you know, oh, today's our psychic day. And so that's what really made you showing up at this event so special, that it was so different and it made their minds work. And it's, yeah, they look forward to you every year. Clients came back and were looking, you've seen them before, and they wanted to talk to you again. Right.
So, yeah, it's an interesting situation there because, you know, the person sitting in front of me has not paid for the reading, so I'm not allowed to hand out my business card because I'm booked through an event planner, which books me through a person who handles the event work for littler law. So I'm a third-party booking, and so it kind of gets, in one sense, very separated, but in a whole other sense, it's extremely liberating. Of course, they could look me up. Anybody who wants to find me and has put, you know, 10 minutes worth of effort into it has always been able to find me. So,
I think it's a brilliant. Oh, go ahead.
But I do think it is interesting that each time you went there and you did a painting, sitting outside and doing a painting. By the way, this is January, which is probably the coldest month of the year in California.
That's right.
You know, and there you were sitting outside and doing a painting for the day. It seems like that painting always sold. I don't know exactly how that happened, but it turns out that it always got sold. and people remembered you. So it's one of those times when you and I are at the same location for the day, but we're not actually working together, which is kind of our story at different times in our life, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We find ourselves at the same place maybe like a week later, or
right.
in the same area. I mean, you'll work up in L.A. and I'll be up in L.A., or you'll be in Newport Beach, and then next week I'll be in Newport Beach. That's pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah, that goes on and on. So, but yeah, that's always a great event. This year they said they were going to move it to another location, so it might be the last time that I do it, but we'll see.
You did that for how many years?
I can't remember. I think it was 6. I think they started out at the Four Seasons in Carlsbad. They didn't book me for 1 year, and then I was at Terranea 6 years in a row. That's how I remember it, but I'm not sure about that. But
well, how many people?
Go ahead.
Oh, how many people do you think you do readings for in that 6-hour time period?
Well, the goal is supposed to be that I do 10 readings an hour. So, but no, the goal is 12 to 15 readings in an hour, and then they want those numbers. You know, at the end of the day, they want those numbers. So it's 12 to 15 readings in an hour. That's the average expectation of a psychic who works a party, is to work 12 to 15 readings in an hour. And, they don't want you to take a break. I mean, they'll let you take, take a break, but, they're just not really too eager to give you that break. So, but yeah, it's a great situation because, there's no place for me to go and buy a snack and get something to eat and stuff like that. So they say, oh yeah, you're welcome to anything that's out, and not many people offer to feed the psychic. I don't know why.
That sounds funny.
Yeah.
That sounds funny when you. That sounds so funny when you put it that way. Oh, they're not human. They don't need anything. Just keep them busy.
Yeah, no, just keep the guests moving through your table. I spent decades trying to train psychics to work parties, and it was the most thankless task I ever set out to do, because I'm sure that there's like a really qualified group of people that could do it, but I just never could get them to take and do the work to be an efficient party psychic. And it's not that they were not qualified, talented, or insightful enough, or skilled. It had nothing to do with it. It had to do with the fact that they just didn't want to have to work that hard. They just didn't want to do it. So,
yeah, it's really hard work. I mean, one person after another, and like I say, people just want more. They just want more, which is great, because you're doing so well. But they just want more, and it's an amazing process to watch you work those parties.
Yeah, I think it's different for me because I'm not too attached.
Right.
I'm not attached to the process. I don't think, I have to do this just perfect. It's like the person in front of me hasn't paid me. The person in front of me is just one of many people today, and somebody's always going to have something to say, always. So that doesn't matter, and it's just simply about the ability to pace yourself, have endurance, not take it personally, and keep the movement going. The worst thing for a hostess is to see her party lined up in front of my table. That's the worst thing for the hostess to have to see, because it's like, where's my party? So you do have to keep the crowd going. But I really do enjoy doing a party like that, and I had kind of always hoped that they would include me in something else, but I got my spot, and then that was it. And that's how large corporate events function, is that they organize the day, and then everybody knows what the day is going to be like. So that's just the way it goes. Not a big deal.
Yeah, it's a special gift to their clients, the people they're throwing the event for, because it's like for many days, and every day they got to come up with something new, something different to keep them entertained, and you do these readings for people, and everybody goes around afterwards saying, "Oh, that was great, you got to do it." So there's a number of parties you walk into where people are they're not really sure what's going on. What is she doing? And all it takes is, and you kind of stir it up, you get 2 or 3 or 4 readings, and then they go out into the group, and it sells itself. People go, "Oh, you got to do that. It's so much fun." Well, I've never done it before. So you got to do it. It's great.
Right. That one of the things that probably is the most interesting about working in public as a party psychic is that people that would never do it. I mean, they would never do it. They would never take and look up a psychic and call the psychic and make an appointment. They would never do it. In that situation, they do a reading, and, it's their first time. So I would say, I mean, there's been times when I've gone to a party and nobody at the party has ever had a psychic reading, and I'm like, oh, my God.
Right.
Virgins everywhere, virgins. So I just am like, oh. So, but then by the end, it's a lot of fun. I always tell them, when I ask somebody, I say, "Have you ever been to a psychic?" And they say, nope, never been to a psychic. I go, oh my gosh, I am so glad, because I'm going to set the bar so high. No psychic is ever going to make you happy again. I'm going to be the only one. And I know that sounds so arrogant. It sounds so completely arrogant. But, the goal is that each person that gets up from that seat and joins the party, because I'm not the party, I'm just the entertainment. I'm one of the pieces of entertainment for that event. They go back and they join the party, and they've had a really good time. So the idea is that each person gets up, they're happy, they're content, and away they go. So, go ahead.
Oh, there's 2 types of parties that you do. I'm just thinking right now, you did the Littler Law, which is a 6-hour event. So you're doing readings for 6 hours, and then there's the Armenian Eye Care Center, where you have to come out like a cannon for, like, what is it, an hour and a half, a cocktail hour party?
Yeah, it's 2 hours.
And there's like 2 hours, and there's like about 150 people there, something like that.
We have 325 people at the event.
325 people, and you've got to just fire on all cylinders for two hours while they're having cocktails. And you've been doing that event for a number of years now.
Right. That's the I like the Balboa Bay Club. It's kind of old school country club kind of setting, dark, a lot of wood and a lot of leather. Rather old school, What?
Dark blood. But no, it's also fascinating that you're working with Armenian community and having that's a whole different culture going on right there. And
that one is interesting, because before they start the eye care fundraiser, what they do is they put together enough money to buy a van, and then these vans go through these little tiny roads in these little tiny outlying villages in Armenia, where the people are, so poor that they can't even afford bus fare in order to get down to see a doctor. And then, how long would they have to travel in order to get to a doctor? So there just isn't any options, and they have terrible visual problems that are going on in that situation. And so they're also they're not Roman Catholic, but they're Orthodox Catholics, and so they have a very long prayer service before the meal starts. And at first, the first time I saw that Father was there, I thought, oh no, these people won't do this. But that is an interesting thing. Because I was part of the party, they were like, oh, yeah, it's okay for us to do it. Father's here. He's watching. And so so that is an interesting sort of little slant on the whole party and the celebration and the fundraising. And they only do one fundraiser. They have a silent auction, they have a fundraiser, and they have a lot of doctors, and it's really a great event. I love the music the most. I love that music.
It's so nice to go to an event and have like cultural music, and you just feel like you're somewhere else for a little while. Just a different atmosphere, and the smell of the food. You're working there and you're doing readings, but you're smelling the food go by and everything.
I'm not there to eat. That's what I always tell people. I always say,
no,
I'm not there to eat. So that's just enough of that. But
so another parties that you do that have been canceled this year, in the past, hopefully, have been grad nights. What is a grad night?
Oh, please save me from the grad nights. I think I got too old for that. I just got too old. So
the kids love it. The kids are just all full of enthusiasm, and you say hormones and all that, but yeah, they love it when you're there. That has got to be the most brutal kind of work as a psychic, to be doing a grad night starting at, you get there at 11, and then how late do you work till?
No. I start at 10. I go to work at 10. The kids arrive usually between 10:30 and 11, and I work until 3 a.m.
Wow. And there's got to be, what, 400 kids? 400 kids, that's the...
Oh, my God, it's crazy how many kids there are. That's another situation where I guess they did a thing on the numbers, and they found that the number one night that high school kids would die would be on their grad night, because they would go out and they would drink, or they would do something stupid. They'd be in a car because they wanted to go out and celebrate, and then they would die on grad night. And so this movement came about to take and create a grad night party that was so fun and so enticing, and everybody was included, of course. And so, sort of one of the little forbidden items is, talking to the psychic. And so I don't know how many years I did Modern Days grad night, but, that was one of the enticements for the kids to feel like they got to do something that was really cool, was that they got to go and talk to the psychic. Once again, it's a situation of where, I always prefer to be supervised. I don't have any problem with somebody listening to my work. I don't give privacy at parties for a really simple reason. If you give somebody privacy, they'll talk way too long. You don't give them privacy, they have a tendency to get up and move out of that chair. But I did really enjoy a mother or one of the chaperones or one of the parents staying close by and listening to what I had to say. And sometimes there would be somebody who was really good and say, you know what she's talking about, and they're like, no, and then that person would say, the following, and they go, oh yeah, I get it. So I don't think people realize how self-conscious the process is of getting a psychic reading in public. It's an extremely self-conscious process, and they're so focused in on how to do it correctly that they don't really relax, and then by the time they've begun to get into it, it's over. So I always tell teenagers, do you know how to work the recording device on your telephone? If you do, just record it, and they record it. And so that's really the best.
Yeah, it is. People always say you work so fast, which you have to do at a party. You have to talk fast. You have to be direct. There's no wavering. There's no fat on the meat, on the bone. You really got to go into it in a party situation. So when people do record it, that's such a wise thing to do, because it goes by in a flash. You got like 3 minutes or 5 minutes to do a reading for somebody. And it's really deep, it's really solid for just that short period of time. Right. No, it was fascinating when you did these grad nights, and they're for affluent neighborhoods or affluent communities, is the themes you came away with. Like, what was the theme of all these kids?
So that was such an interesting, that's such a great commentary, because there were these grad nights that I did for a period of time. It must have been 15 years ago. And they would tell me I had to bring another person with me, and I would bring George Hahn with me. And George and I sat down and we went to work, at one point we both looked up at each other, and he said, I just cannot believe these kids. And it was an area that was, I guess we would say it was sort of a middle class sort of setting. It was Manhattan Beach, and it was, these children were in public school. Is that right? Yeah, they were in public school, so it wasn't really like they were placed into a private school. They were in public school, but they were in an area that was really very affluent. And I found that the theme is that the children that had died in the African AIDS epidemic had instantly been reborn to these families in, this suburban setting, and they had actually even chosen to be born as a group. And George and I both found that they had all the markings on their hands, their feet, their ears, their teeth of a spirit that has, not taken in, in the spirit world, that's like 10 minutes in a waiting room,
Wow.
So they had turned around and chosen to be reborn. But then they had chosen to be reborn to couples that had infertility issues also, because many of these families waited until the women were in their early 40s. And and so there's also the added sort of bonus of kind of correcting the balance of karma of taking a child being reborn to a couple who really wanted a child, really had hoped, wished, saved, planned, and wanted a child. And so it was a series of different things that, the karma was sort of, put into balance. But they were all in a position to take and become humanitarians. And when I asked each one of them, I said, well, you could live and work for 3 years. You could live in China, India, or Africa. And the majority of them said Africa. Now, I'm not saying all of them did. Some of them said China, which, if you understand the story there of the number of children that died, then you kind of understand that. But that is such an interesting thing. And the part that, of course, was really fun was that I was there with another person who, had very different training, very different education, and he looked up and he had the same experience. He had the same piece of insight. So, and it's a situation, you're just doing one child after the next, and I'll never forget this one girl that I saw. She had the headline lifeline disconnect, and she had 7 stars in her hand. If you get 1 star, that's great. It's really great. I mean, that's really, it's interesting. But she had 7 stars. And I looked at her hand, and I said, where are you going to college? And she said, I'm going to Georgetown. And she was really soft-spoken and sweet and everything else. But, public school to Georgetown, I don't think that happens much. I mean, I'm just making a guess at it. But, yeah, definitely, I was thinking about that earlier. I was thinking I really miss doing grad nights, and then a part of me just said, oh, my gosh, I don't miss the exhaustion. I do not miss the exhaustion. Because you're up all night. I don't go to sleep until 8:30 in the morning. You're up for almost 24 hours straight.
Yeah, so, it takes 2-3 days to recover from something like that.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever really do recover. Maybe I just lose part of my brain cells when I do that. So anyway, okay. You and I worked
Interesting.
Parties. I never would have talked about parties like this unless you brought it up.
Well, here's another party that I would just could see it working so well is to do a party for a bridal shower. I mean, here's the bride. Everything's being lavished on her. It's her day and her moment. And then she gets together with the girls for the bridal shower.
Right.
And I think it would be just one of the best things ever to bring in a psychic to entertain the party. I mean, it's all about, when you do a psychic reading or a psychic party, it's all about them. It's not about the. So you got the bride, and I would say bring a psychic in, bring you in to do readings and fun readings for the party. I think that would be such a hit. Bridal shower parties.
Yeah, I like bridal showers. I also like the tea party. I think the primary. I mean, I certainly did a lot of bridal shower parties up at the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills, and
That's right.
That was really a very nice setting. They have something called a living room that they set up, and it's really kind of ideally designed in order to set up a tea party or a corner for a conversation. And then they also had another room, which was a ballroom. That's what we would call it, but it really wasn't designed like that. They made it look like it was a hotel room that really had just a large area in it that could seat 40 people, and it had a series of balconies on the back of it. And that was a beautiful room to have a tea party in. But I like doing tea leaf readings in a group because inevitably there is one in 8 people has a natural ability to do tea leaf reading, and you find that one person, and then it sort of opens up the conversation. I don't think that places that are, hotels and restaurants really like the tea party setup because, they love doing a tea because a tea is very, it's a very efficient thing that you can do. There isn't anything hot. They can do all the preparation, cold preparation in advance, and then they simply, come and make up the room, and then they put out the food. So it's for a hotel situation. But if you do tea, you have to have all of the boiling water, and you have to have the little teacups, and then I bring the tea, but then they have to have the sugar and the spoon. It's an entire table filled with, linens and everything else in order to set it up. So I just never found that the hotels liked the amount of work. The restaurants and hotels do not like the amount of work that's necessary to set up the table for a tea party, and it's just kind of silly because, once you took and you put it together and organized it in your pantry of the hotel or the restaurant, it really is quite simple to teach somebody how to do it. But I would say that the tea party for the bride-to-be is probably one of my favorite things to do, my favorite above all else. And, of course, Disney did an Alice in Wonderland tea party. And when Disney does something like that, of course, it's extraordinary and quite beautiful. Yeah.
Well, you're one of the elite to be a psychic and be involved with Disney. You worked at Club 33. You've did New Year's Eve there.
Right.
That's quite a feather in your cap to go through that labyrinth of hurdles. Because talent is, all they do at Disney is know talent from everything, from musicians to all sorts of things. So you've done that, and that's pretty incredible.
It's hard. It's hard work to take and meet that criteria, and they don't. You sign a contract that you won't drink water, you won't have a breath mint, you won't have a piece of gum. You just. They have everything figured out. The biggest benefit in doing, I did Holly Madison's baby shower, and then later Holly Madison came back and did her wedding there, and that was really a lot of fun. But Disney knows how much work it takes to perform, and they bring you on for 45 minutes and they take you off for 15 minutes. So they have the awareness of how much effort is required to work at that level of energy, of just giving. And you are kind of, I am kind of dressed up. It's not what you would consider a costume, but I am kind of dressed up, and it is kind of restricting in your movement, so you don't have a lot of movement, and then, it's tough. It's really tough. Working for Disney is, in one way, is absolutely wonderful because they understand what you need to recuperate for 15 minutes before you come back and do another 45 minutes of work. So they schedule you on for hours, but they bring you off they take you out of the spot and they take you off stage for 15 minutes. So Disney is a great situation to work in the fact that they have the awareness of what it takes to perform, but you have to be exceptional. You have to be a person who can perform under stress and under pressure, and keep your calm and make it look really good. So it's not an easy thing to do at all.
No. There's another parties that you do that are really interesting to me is the private homes. You'll go into a private home and they'll gather a group together. What's the difference? I mean, yeah, it's just totally different. In a hotel, there's sort of structure involved, or Disney, there's a structure.
Right.
But in a private home, anything goes. I mean, how do you see going into a private residence and doing a party?
It's funny because I never think about it. You've said that to me before, several times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've thought, it's really doing a party inside of somebody's home or doing a party inside of an event hall. Truthfully, in some ways, I would rather be in somebody's private home because there's the awareness that they have to create a spot for me and all of those things. I think the number one complaint I have about doing a home party is when I meet with the host and hostess in the beginning, and I'm not a person who is part of the party. I'm not part of the family. I'm not part of the party.
Right.
I'm not an employee. I am simply somebody who is being paid by the hour to participate in this event, and so it's kind of difficult because you don't really have much say. And a party is about people getting together and having a lot of fun. So the plus side of the situation is the fact that you have to you have these people that are aware of the fact that you are taking and doing a party and you need a space. The downside of it is that I can't believe I try and get a hold of this person, and then right when I'm in the middle of a show. So, I mean, what am I going to do?
Happens all the time. Yeah.
Happens all the time, I guess. I always tell the host and hostess, I say, if I have a guest that's had too much to drink or I think is being unreasonable in some way, the only thing that I will do is that I will walk away. And every single time, every host and hostess says, oh, we don't have guests like that. We would never have guests like that in our home. This is what they always say. And congratulations to those people that only have people that they love, care, and know in their home. And I inevitably find that it's true. It's not one of their friends. It's not one of their family members. No, it's not. It's one of their friends or family members who brought somebody who they don't know that shows up and, tries to corner me and, hold me hostage to give them a reading. And I am just like, I honestly and truly have really learned to just never say anything about it, but just say, excuse me. And if I have that problem at a really big party, I go and tell my contact person I've got somebody who's had too much to drink, and I just have to you have to get rid of them. So they're really good at that. They don't have any problem doing it. They're not thinking there's something wrong. But inside of a home, the host and hostess are so busy, you really can't call upon them to handle a problem like that. You just can't.
Yeah. There's no servants around. There's no busboys. There's no anybody you can really go to. It takes again, it's not a structured event.
Right. So, but home parties, I've had some women that took and put together just some absolutely fabulous, setups for me. So it was an area that was quiet, and it was a spot that was, private, and they decorated it beautifully. I mean, I really have had, some great experiences in people's homes, and it's really, really wonderful. The home party, in its own way, is just as touching, just as loving, and just as interesting as the large corporate event, where there's a multitude of things to do. So, I never dislike doing home parties. I do have one thing, and that is that I do not do Halloween parties. If you want me to do a Halloween party, you have to know me, or you have to have somebody who knows me really well say, this is a person, and you can trust this person, because I just find that people that want a psychic for a Halloween party are not really interested in what it means to have a psychic give readings that are, very spiritual messages. They just see it as some sort of tourist trade, sort of carnival sideshow sort of thing. So it's so funny, because most people assume that because you work as a party psychic that you'd be only too willing to do Halloween parties. There's plenty of other psychics that you can get for those events, but no, I don't do. You have to know me, or you have to have somebody that can vouch for you that you will not, you will not treat the psychic readings like, the popcorn on the table, but it will actually be a real thing. So
yeah, sort of like the novelty that they're trying to pull off.
Huh?
What?
Yeah. No Halloween parties. Yes. That is kind of an odd thing. And then the other thing is that what's the costume for a Halloween party? I mean, I almost always get dressed up as an angel. I put on a white dress and everything else, and I get dressed up as an angel. But I mean, you do have some real limitations as to what you can dress up as. That's really a very positive, reinforcing sort of process if you're doing those sort of readings. So it's a little bit more complex than people would really understand. But that's the nature of parties.
Well, you're known as the best party psychic ever, and you truly are. I mean, I've seen you work, and people, every time I come to pick you up, it's, where's the line? Oh, there's the line. There she is working. So it's an amazing amount of energy to talk to people and do one reading after another. Mm-hmm. Right. Is there a type of person you enjoy doing a reading for more than others?
Well, so it's kind of an interesting thing. It seems like such a cliche of a line, but anyway, when you talk with people that are very intelligent and very educated, they're more broad-minded. They've seen more of the world. They have more of a cross-section of experience. And I'm not talking about people that are elitist. I'm talking about people that are, they really have put a lot of effort and energy into becoming educated, trained, and qualified in the area of work that they are the very best at. They have more energy to pick up on, and that individual will focus on the one thing that I said that I could not have ever known. They will focus in on that one remark. They'll say, there's no way you could have known X, Y, and Z, and when you said this, I really knew it was real, and then I started to really listen. And so that individual is the most interesting because, it's kind of funny. For all the amount of time and energy that we spend evaluating and defining how somebody's talented and what their talents are and what the talents actually mean, very little time is actually spent on understanding how the process is of a psychic. How does a psychic actually pick up energy? And a psychic picks up emotions. So if you put a psychic in a setting where they're doing readings near the ocean, near the lake, near a stream, near a body of water, obviously it should be natural, that would be preferable, the water works as a reflective surface to bring the emotions back on to the psychic, and the psychic can read them and decipher them more rapidly. But most people don't really give a lot of thought to that. But water is a cleanser, water is fluid. I mean, water has all of these qualities that facilitate the process of the reading. So when you sit down with a person who's, has a very set idea about what they want for a reading, what they want to talk about, what they want to hear about, how they want to hear about it, and what the answer should be, then I really have just the width of an ant, and I'm talking about not the relative, but the creature on the ground. I have the width of an ant to walk into their thinking and their feeling process and to pull out the information. And so, you know, as this has become more mainstream, because, you know, I started, you know, doing parties in 1982, as it's become more mainstream, people think that they know more. And, you know, and so they really don't know more. They just think that they have seen more and that they actually know more. And I mean, this is not in any way a criticism of them. It's just I think that they miss the fun and the excitement and the energy. If people really understood how different training was for psychics, the training, education, and foundation of our work is so incredibly varied. I mean, there's so many different arenas where people start out working and learning to do psychic readings that there is no way that there is a set process in order to take and get you a reading. So it is very, it's much more limiting to listen to a person who thinks that they know how it's supposed to be done, and then they tell me how to do my job and what they want me to do, and then they tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong, and then they tell me who I should talk to next. And I think this is I like to laugh
That's
about
funny.
it.
Well, yeah, because you always say how these people would run over you if you didn't stand up and kind of hold your boundaries, and people are so demanding and they don't really see you as, like you say, they just think they're putting quarters into a machine here, right?
Right. So I think that that's one of the primary problems with psychics working in a party environment, that they don't really understand, because you have to be able to control the crowd. And really a smart hostess takes and organizes a crowd control method that suits her event, her party, whatever. But they leave me in charge of crowd control, time control. They leave me in control of so many aspects. It's not just the reading. So I always tell a hostess, you're welcome to interrupt me at any time. You know, there's nobody who's you know, more important than you, and so if you need to interrupt me and tell me something, please do. It's not a big deal. You have to be able to deal with interruptions, and then you have to be able to have control of your crowd. And so I've become really good at spotting women and men who really want to be in control of a situation. And when they sit down, I tell them, okay, I'm going to do your reading for you now, and I'm going to be taking back control of my job. And they go, what are you talking about? And I say to them, I go, okay, you know how you told, you know, Alan to sit in that chair, and you sat in this chair, and then you told your girlfriend Denise to sit here and everything else. I said, okay, we're all finished with that, and now I'm going to be in control, and I'm going to do my job. And then the person that's hyper-controlling and is not aware of the fact of how controlling they are like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I do their reading first, and I get rid of them. I make them leave, you know, politely, of course. But I tell them, you know, you have to go back to the party now. But the individual who gets what they've done, they stop, and then they just join into the process. But if you're not confident and comfortable enough to tell a group of people what you need in order to do readings, you're never going to make it through an hour, and you'll be consumed alive. And people have this notion that because they sat in front of me, they're not paying, by the way. Let's keep that in mind. They're not paying for this. They sit down in front of me, and then they say, okay, all right, you answered that question. Now I want you to answer this question. And as soon as they do that, you know, I tell them, okay, you got to ask one question. And they go, one question? I go, that's your question. And they laugh, and they get it, and they only ask one question. Okay.
Yeah.
So as soon as they do that, I go, you know, I had that thing on the side of my neck where you can drop quarters in and ask questions. I had it removed. And
right.
they kind of do this thing of where they look to the side, then they look at me, and they get it, because they're thinking that they are in a, we used to have these video arcades. I don't even know if they have them anymore. And there used to be a machine that you could go to, and it was, Zora. Zora gave you this reading, and you drop these quarters in, and you put your hands there, and out came this message. And it was just simply about quarters. And people think, I don't know why, but sometimes they just think that I'm just sort of, a machine sitting in front of them, and they can drop these quarters in, and I will give them their reading. So this is another reason why a lot of psychics don't like doing parties. And if you can't tell somebody, I'm not here to do that for you, then, you've got a whole different problem, and you probably should not be working parties, because there's people that will just simply eat you alive. And I've had women come over to the table and tell me, I want you to do this next person, and I want you to do this person, and I want you to take and tell this person about his relationship problems. And, of course I'm really polite, and everything else, and I listen to them. And then I tell them, I go, that's really helpful, and I appreciate you, but I got it here. You go ahead and go back to the party and just let me do my job here, and I'll be just fine. The other one I don't like is when a person has had a really nice reading with me, and they go and they find their husband, and they tell him, they go, you have to do it. And I say, we don't take any hostages here. If he doesn't do it willingly, I'm not going to do it. And they go, and they've usually, they're having fun. They've had a few drinks, and they're trying to convince him. And sometimes I tell them, hey, why don't you see if I can do my job and convince him to do it with me? Otherwise, you guys got to go back to the party. So, but this just simply comes as the result of hard-won experience, as the result of doing, parties after parties after parties after parties. And before the Great Recession of 2008, there were many, many weeks where I took and I did 3 and 4 parties a week. And that, now I'm too old for that. I think I've just gotten too old for that. I can't do that. Next question, Rich.
Well, is there a role model? Is there a role model for somebody who has done parties the way you're doing them? I don't think there is. Is there somebody that goes, oh, they're doing it, so I can do it? So I don't.
Well, that's a good one. That's a really good one. One time this woman called me up, and, I told her what I did and everything else, and she wanted me to take and come to a location. At the time, I was pretty much booked, and I really wasn't traveling more than 75 miles outside of my range. That was it. And she said to me, well, if you can do it, then I can do it. And I go, well, great, thanks for the phone call. But it is a lot of, it's like anything else. I mean, it's just experience. So,
well, most people, when they get into a field, they say, "Oh, look at that person! Look what they did." For art, I look at a Renoir, or I look at a Monet, and I go, "Oh man, I want to do that." How did they live their lives? What did they do? Is there anybody in the psychic world, or you want to put their poster on the wall as kids do with baseball players or somebody, rock stars? They put posters on their wall that say, "Oh, I want to be like that." Is there anything in the psychic world that you would? Whose poster would you put on the wall if you were?
No, it's not like that. It's really kind of funny, because I remember really early on in my life, I thought it would really be great if I came over and there was a group of women, 4 or 5 women, and then we would spend the afternoon taking and having like this tea party where we would, drink a lot of tea and eat a bunch of little sandwiches and eat these really super rich, finger desserts. And it would be this lovely experience of me taking and sitting and talking about them. And I imagined this over and over and over and over again, that this would be a way for me to be able to, do readings for people. But I always have liked the idea of of doing that in a group sort of situation it's a really simple reason. One is that if you do it with people that know you, they'll say, oh, you know what she's talking about. And they'll explain it. They kind of run interference for me, and they explain it to that person and say, yeah, she's talking about this. And they go, oh, I get it now. But so I always like the benefit of that. And then the other part of it is that if you do something together as a group, there's more components to it, and the memory runs deeper. So in theory, the best psychic reading, you don't actually ever remember. Your life changes because of it. And that's
right.
I really wish I could remember who quoted that, but that's it's not. Psychic energy has to have placement, and I think that's one of the things that if you put it into a situation of a gathering, a meal, part of a party, it has placement, and then in people's mind they remember that. Now, they may not actually remember what was said in the reading, but they remember the event and they remember getting a reading.
So what brings you the most joy from doing parties or doing these events? What brings you when you just come home, what makes you most satisfied from doing these parties?
I think in talking with a person who looks at something they've looked at the same way their whole life, and after they have that conversation with me, their perspective has changed. It has completely changed. How they see a person, how they feel about life has gone through a real shift. I don't think that people realize that the information that they get assists them to make a change that they were ready to make, and that I just happened to show up at that moment. So to me, that's the other thing, of course, that's wonderful is to be able to give good news. I mean, there's something really quite special about being able to give good news.
It's got to be nice too. You're dealing with say 175 people, and then when someone comes along that you really connect with, is that kind of a different feeling? I mean, compared to other people, like there's got to be people in the group that you just go, oh, they're maybe easier to read, or you feel a little connection there or something.
So chemistry for finding a psychic that gets you and gets your story and gives you advice that supports that process is the same sort of chemistry that we talk about that happens between people. You know, I finish somebody's sentence, I say something, and they say, oh my gosh, I remember that. And then there's things that happen to me as a person and as a psychic that I don't really have an explanation for. I mean, there was a period of time when I could say, you know, when you did this play, this line really struck a deep chord inside of you. And I did that as a regular sort of commentary with people, and that's something that I haven't done for a really, really long time. But there was a period of time when I did readings, I could tell somebody a quote, an author, a play, a performance. I could quote it. And why those things come and why they go, I have no explanation. So just the fact that you talk with somebody and you connect to something extremely deep, something extremely powerful that goes beyond my understanding and their understanding, I don't listen to what I say to people. Most of the time, I train myself not to listen to what I say because I'm afraid that if I listen so closely, I will edit it and I will somehow or another censor myself in such a manner as to not give them the reading that is the real reading. So that's the detachment, and coming from the position of the witness is a really valuable tool in working as a psychic, but that does take a lot of training. So we're at the end. Rich, promote yourself.
Well, I'm Rich Flynn, and my website is richflynn.com. I'm a wedding and event painter, but I also do commissions, and I also do my own work. And I'm married to one of the best party psychic ever, and that's without a doubt. That's not an overstatement, and I love you.
Oh, thank you, darling. You're wonderful. Really a great conversation. The hour just flew by. So you're speaking with Suzanne Wyman, the Deep Reading Connecting You to Your Soul. I'll be here next week, and you can call me at 714-400-7384. Thank you very much. It's been a great show. Make today great, and I will see you, talk to you, and be with you next week. Bye-bye now.
Become a Goldilocks Productions VIP patron. Receive exclusive access to live stream special and other epic perks. Join the Goldilocks Productions VIP community today.